Well, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Aaron Moreland, and I am the owner and one of the practitioners at Vallejo Health and Wellness Center. And I have Dr. John Toftoy. Toftoy. Yeah, get it right. Dr. John Toftoy with us during this video because I really want to spend some time talking to Dr. John and just getting to know him better, to understand what his passion is for cycling and how that ties into him being a doctor, and how beneficial it is to people that are looking to ride bikes, to be able to get that expertise of a past professional bike rider, right?
Yeah.
And then also a doctor of chiropractic who really understands the body. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
So Dr. John, tell us a little bit about, like, how did you even get into bicycling?
Yeah.
You grew up out in Illinois, I think
Yep,
it is.
exactly.
Yeah,
So grew up on a farm about 60 miles west of Chicago.
Yep.
And that was basketball country. So
Okay.
think Hoosiers
Yep.
in Midwest basketball. Cycling was not a thing. We rode our bikes, but it was just to get around. And so basketball and baseball through high school. I wasn't going to get a scholarship to play basketball in college. And so in college, I just sort of focused on studies, studied economics, got a job at an investment bank downtown Chicago. So I
Okay.
moved downtown, thought I was the coolest at 21, had a sweet loft, working a lot of hours, and traveling almost full-time exclusively, to where I put on a lot of weight.
Okay.
So from where I am today, I was 60 pounds heavier,
Okay.
and this is at 22, 23.
But not 60 pounds of solid muscle, 60 pounds of unhealthy
That's some
weight.
extra stuff, that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, I did lift weights in college without playing sports, and so maybe a little combination of both, but
Yeah.
compared to even race weight cycling, I was 75 pounds heavier,
Wow.
which is just a lot. So
Yeah.
I was unhealthy, didn't have much energy, started not liking what I was doing, just didn't feel like I was on the right trajectory.
Sure.
I wasn't, my life didn't look like I imagined it.
Yeah.
And so I actually saw, I believe it was a Gatorade commercial, where there was a triathlete named Chris Lee at the Ironman Championships in Hawaii.
Okay.
And he is staggering at the finish line. He can't finish the run. He's really out of it. And he actually collapses multiple times, doesn't end up finishing the race. So he's in first place,
Okay.
stops 50 meters from the finish line and couldn't finish. So extreme dehydration.
Yeah.
Actually ended up killing some of his large intestine off, to where it's messed
Like
him up
never coming back.
afterwards. He actually did come back to racing, but so I watched it again recently, and I thought, man, what is wrong with all these people watching this guy just deteriorate into nothing, and everyone's cheering him, keep going.
Yeah.
And he's vomiting all over. Nobody's stopping him. But when I saw that 20 years ago, I thought, oh, well, that's so cool. I want to do that.
Sure.
And so that sort of set in me a desire to challenge my body. So I started running, biking, swimming.
Yeah.
I actually remember the first time I ran a 5K, so 3 miles.
Yeah.
Hadn't run that far in high school. You know, maybe we did a couple miles for conditioning, but
Sure.
I remember calling my dad, I just ran 3 miles at once. And to me, this was the biggest deal.
So it really wasn't just biking then, it was the triathlon.
It was not
that got
biking
you.
at all.
Yeah.
Yep, not at all. Now, with triathlon, I knew there was a bike component.
Yeah.
And so I actually got a bike. It was a Trek 1000, probably set me back $200.
Okay. Yeah.
Secondhand.
Yeah.
So pretty entry level road bike,
Yep.
but it was a Trek at the time. Lance Armstrong was winning Tour
Sure.
de France's. He was on ESPN, more mainstream.
Yeah.
Before that, cycling, there was Greg LeMond in the US. There was some notoriety, popularity, but it wasn't popular until Lance started
Sure.
and stuff.
And so he was riding a Trek? Is that
He was
why you
riding a
chose
Trek, and I was like, well, yeah,
Okay.
I gotta get this. And then I got his jersey
Yeah.
with the US Postal Service. Now, granted, I wore basketball shorts
Sure.
and I kept the reflectors on my bike.
High tops.
I didn't know what I was
Oh.
doing. Yeah. I couldn't clip in and out, so I just had basketball shoes. I was just pedaling.
Yeah.
So long story short, 2005, I was working in Arizona, and I did the Ironman Arizona in 2005.
Okay.
So I had learned to swim. I swam, but not for exercise.
Sure.
Started biking, got a bike. I'd run before. That one's obvious, but
Yeah.
I trained. So I completed the Ironman in 2005, and I realized I thought it was the biggest accomplishment. Oh, I did it. I lost all the weight for one.
Yeah.
I was lighter than I was in high school. For endurance sports, makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
Felt great, but I was not a good swimmer.
Okay.
And so the people, we get to start together, the pros go first, and then us age groupers. And I lost 10, 15 minutes to the guys in 2.5 miles of swimming. But in the bike, I was relatively competitive. And this
Okay.
is not trained. The run, I was average, just
Sure.
very average. And I barely survived. There was walking.
So you really noticed that, hey, the bike portion, I'm excelling here.
Yes.
Swimming, I'm not good at it.
Yep.
I'm not enjoying it probably.
No
I know
way.
I
No.
trained for a triathlon a few years ago. I remember bringing a friend of mine that was an Ironman triathlete, and he's like, yeah, if your feet are dragging at the bottom of the pool, that's a bad thing. And so I
Yes.
obviously, I'm not a good swimmer either. And then the running was okay. And so did that from there say, hey, maybe I should just focus on cycling?
Well, you would think,
Yeah.
but of course, no. My brain's going.
Yeah, I gotta
Otherwise,
get
I'm
better
like,
at
I
swimming
can be
and-
faster.
Yeah.
I need to get faster at swimming and running. So I focused on that. The next year, I did one in Madison. The following year, one in Madison.
Yeah.
And some smaller
So
ones.
again, did you never do like a triathlon? You just jumped into an Ironman triathlon?
It's a good question. No, so I did some smaller ones.
Okay.
Yep, I definitely did. I remember there was one in Chicago, an Olympic distance, so
Yeah.
a lot shorter distances. Mrs. T's triathlon, I remember, was sponsored by a pierogi maker.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
eating the pierogies, thinking this is good food. I didn't know anything. Actually, they probably were good food for a few. It wasn't until I decided also to make a change in my career.
Sure.
And so at the same time, I was still working, traveling full time, but I would go to Lifetime and swim wherever it was. I'd jump in just community pools. I'd run in the middle of the night. So I remember I used to wake up. I was in New York at the time, so staying in Manhattan, and I'd wake up early. Everyone starts work late. Run in Central Park. I just had routine down where I felt like, all right, I'm thriving, but still I was not fulfilled. I felt like work was getting in the way of me pursuing these passions.
Sure.
And I think all of us have this wildness at heart, or feel like, if we can pursue adventures, that fills some of those voids that we have. So I decided to make a change in my career.
Yeah.
It was time either I was going to go back to business school or do something different.
Okay.
I went through a process where I thought, hey, what are some gifts and talents that I have? What do I like doing? And I liked training for triathlons. I liked getting healthy. I felt like it was easy to lose weight, and I can help other people do that too.
Yeah.
So what would that look like as a career? I thought, well, I could just be a professional triathlete, maybe. But I knew in my mind I was never going to swim as fast as these guys. I might be able to run close to, but not after swimming and biking. And so I'd been helped by a chiropractor growing up. We were very natural healthcare as a family. Growing up on a farm, I think, is a pretty common thing. And so I decided to go back to chiropractic school. I was dating a girl at the time who had moved to Minnesota.
There's always a girl.
And
right?
she's my wife now, so it worked out. And they had a school in Bloomington, Minnesota. So I said, you know what, 2007 in the fall, I'm moving up and starting chiropractic school. So
Very cool.
so at chiropractic school, I got plugged into a cycling community here. Back in the late 2000s, cycling was big in Minnesota. So local road racing scene. I signed up for time trials. So that's where you ride by yourself, think triathlon.
Okay.
I thought, hey, I'm gonna go and practice because I'm still a triathlete.
Sure.
And that's where I met cyclists. And they're like, hey, you don't have to swim and run. You can just ride your bike.
Sure. Yeah.
And that started the process where I learned more. You don't know how much you don't know until you're around people who are more experienced. I was really fortunate enough to meet some veterans who sort of took me under their wing, invited me to ride with them, showed me what they do, how they take care of their bike, introduced me to people in the industry, and then you just start learning a little more.
Yeah.
I started getting on websites, cycling news and velo news. So I read about what people are doing. I followed pro cycling. So I dove all in. Like
Yeah.
this became central focus, a little schooling and focused on cycling. And from there, just entered road races. And then depending on how many races you do and how well you do in them, you get upgraded to different categories to there when you're doing bigger races against faster people.
Yeah.
And eventually you reach the top where then you're competing against guys who get paid to race their bikes.